This video is sponsored by RocketMoney, more about them later. Also, really quickly, I posted these two videos over the last week or so, and they're doing fine, but I would like more people to see them because I worked hard on them, and I think that they're both really good, so if you haven't seen them yet, head on over to my channel to watch them after this video. Thanks! I'm sure at some point, you've probably heard this song. It's called Breathe Me, and it's from Australian singer Sia's fourth studio album, Colour the Small One, which was released all the way back in 2004. While it's more critically acclaimed now, Colour the Small One didn't necessarily have a huge reception or much fanfare around it when it first released. But a year later, the song was featured in an HBO series called 6 Feet Under, propelling Sia to a more mainstream audience in the United States. This is a common thread that we'll see in Sia's career, a vocal and songwriting talent that used some lucky chances to propel herself more toward the industry forefront. But as we'll see, Sia tends to squander a lot of that goodwill by making some really ill-timed and straight-up poor choices.
You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium.
After moving to the United States to pursue a career in the music industry, Sia actually stayed out of the limelight for a couple of years. She was known as a songwriter in the contemporary pop music sphere, often passing off tracks to big artists like Beyonce and Rihanna. She originally wrote this song, Titanium, for Alicia Keys, but then the track actually got passed off to David Guetta, who did more of an upbeat techno remix to it, and decided to keep Sia's vocals on the track rather than swap them out for someone else. A similar thing also happened with Flo Rida's track Wild Ones, which Sia is also featured on. Sia translated that success into a more front-facing album called 1000 Forms of Fear, which released in 2013. And I remember loving this album when I was like 16, 17 years old, but I have not listened to the full thing in a while. So I'm going to do what every cool influencer does and go look up the rating that Anthony Fantano gave it on his channel, and then I can tell you whether or not it still holds up today.
Transition.
Apparently he gave it a 7, which is like pretty high for what I thought he would give an album like that, so I guess it's still good, guys. We solved the mystery. This album earned a lot of praise that year, and two singles, Chandelier and Elastic Heart, got a lot of radio play. What's interesting about this project is that while the music is pretty solid all the way through, the visuals for it got even more attention because for any kind of promotion or performance around this time, Sia elected not to show her face. She's explained in interviews before that this was because she wanted to maintain some kind of control over her privacy and her image. And so when she would perform, she would either face away from the crowd or appear in these oversized wigs and bows that would mask her face. It was a gimmick that gave her sort of a Gaga-esque intrigue, and I think people just really gravitated toward her story. You know, the fact that she was such a present figure in the pop music industry for so many years, but nobody really knew her name. And now she was putting her art out there in a way that was unapologetically hers, and it was a nice contrast to like the vanity of the pop music industry that we normally see day to day. But in addition to Sia's physical presence or lack thereof during this era, there was another way she chose to visually present herself during her music videos and her live performances, and now we have to talk about Sia and Maddie Ziegler. Basically, the story goes that Sia, who seems to be a fan of reality television, was really impressed by the dance skills of Maddie Ziegler, who was a cast member on a popular reality TV show called Dance Moms. And it's so weird, but I feel like everything I talk about on this channel somehow has some connection to Dance Moms. But basically, from there, Maddie and Sia got in touch, and Sia put Maddie in her music video for Chandelier back when music videos actually mattered, and that music video went super viral. You've probably seen it before. It's a video of Maddie in this very minimalistic outfit, making creepy faces and doing some really beautiful choreography in this dingy little house setting. You know, a lot of the story comes from the movement. Then at live performances, Maddie would often do the dance while Sia sang live and covered her face. The popularity of this cemented the two of them as collaborators, which raised some questions for people because of the age gap between Maddie and Sia. So I fucking hate talking about this topic, and it's the same reason why I hate the way people speak about Amanda Bynes. And I know I'm gonna get misinterpreted in the exact same way here, and that's what's so frustrating, because whenever YouTubers talk about Maddie's relationship with Sia, they always put on this super serious tone and play this creepy music in the background. The thumbnail is always like a fucked up image of Maddie Ziegler making a distorted face when she was 13 years old. And I'm not outright saying that Maddie's relationship with Sia wasn't inherently exploitative at this time. Like, stuff about their relationship was definitely weird. You know, I just find it hypocritical that people speak for and over Maddie as if she's not an adult people with any kind of agency in the situation now, when those same people accuse Sia of speaking for and over Maddie. I just feel like the whole discussion often robs Maddie of her agency a bit, because again, people want this sensationalized story that may or may not have some basis in fact, but they want it to be more than that. I'm just saying that if you present the facts of this situation as if it's a true crime documentary, then at what point are you not just doing the same thing? And we'll get into other boundary violating sort of things that Sia has admitted about her relationship with Maddie, but I'm talking specifically about people who read a little too much into the music video stuff. For example, Sia's music video for Elastic Heart features Maddie and Shia LaBeouf, and they do this choreographed dance in a cage, and that video also went super viral. Now, I get why this video of a grown man and a child dancing with one another is a little shocking to see, because to me it just reads like Sia trying to make provocateur type content for attention. Like, she's not really saying anything with the message of this video, she just understands that this stark visual contrast is just inherently attention grabbing, and that is very irresponsible because Shia is a grown man and Maddie is a minor. The logical leaps that people are going to make with that regardless of intent should be obvious. But I feel like also the way that some content creators have talked about it is really fucking weird, and they get into really granular detail about the dance costume that Maddie's wearing, and what moves in the video could be interpreted as sexual. And I get why the contents of this video make people uncomfortable in just a general sense, but I don't know, in some cases I feel like if you're thinking that deeply about a little girl dancing, that feels a little bit like a self-report to me. Like, it's almost creepier than the actual video itself. But whatever, I know 50% of you are gonna completely miss my point on what I'm saying here. So regardless of how you feel about that video or any of the videos that Maddie has appeared in, let's talk about the other reasons why people consider their friendship to be controversial. Basically, people look at the toxic environment that Maddie grew up in on Dance Moms, her sort of codependent relationship with dance coach Abby Lee Miller, and they argue that Sia sort of took on that role in her life. On multiple occasions, Sia has described herself as a second mother to Maddie. Apparently, they would have sleepovers, and on one occasion, she said that they slept in bed together. Sia has described calling up Maddie's mom, Melissa, and intervening in roles that she could potentially take in Hollywood for fear that it would damage Maddie's career, and has said that she keeps coming up with projects for Maddie to do to protect her from working with other people. In more of an artistic sense, Sia has also gone as far as to describe Maddie as her muse in all of the art that she makes, saying that she doesn't want to make anything if Maddie is not involved in it. I don't have to tell you that some of this behavior is very weird. Of course it's weird. Of course she shouldn't be putting this amount of pressure and control on a 14-year-old kid. Unfortunately, Maddie's mom is notoriously a vapid dummy, so what are you gonna do? But I think for the most part, people didn't really understand how strange or manipulative or even dangerous this kind of relationship could be until Sia basically set Maddie up to fail with a disastrous project called music. But before we get there, I wanted to talk to you guys about the sponsor of today's video, RocketMoney. So, my boyfriend and I recently made a very big and important purchase. A brand new couch. And I don't know if you guys know this, but couches are expensive. And so thankfully RocketMoney was super helpful in being able to help me save and budget for the couch that we wanted. RocketMoney has been a sponsor around here for a long time now, but if you're unfamiliar, it's a personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and ultimately manage your money better. I personally love using RocketMoney to keep track of not only what I am saving and spending, but also to get a better idea of what I can cut down on by canceling those pesky unwanted subscriptions. RocketMoney can safely and securely identify those reoccurring charges and cancel those unwanted subscriptions for you. You can even cancel from directly within the app with just a couple of taps. No need to worry about customer service calls. RocketMoney has helped save its customers up to $740 a year with over 500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's equivalent to like a lot of couches, and yeah, we sat on a lot of couches before we finally bought one. So if you are ready to take control of your finances, you can head on over to rocketmoney.com/KaylaSays. That is rocketmoney.com/KaylaSays to get started for free. And thank you so much again to our friends at RocketMoney for sponsoring today's video. So a couple years ago, Sia directed and put out her first feature film. The film follows a character named Zoo, played by Kate Hudson, who suddenly has to learn to care for her autistic sibling Music, played by Maddie Ziegler. Leslie Odom Jr. is also in this movie. He plays Zoo's neighbor who has experience with caring for a person with autism, and the two of them eventually form a relationship. Music is nonverbal, and so there are large music sequences that are supposed to be the world portrayed through Music's eyes when she is experiencing music. I'm saying music a lot, and the more I say it, the more it sounds like it's not a word. The film, which ended up getting nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards, was very offensive to the autistic community. Basically, the way Music, the character, is portrayed in the film suggests that Sia has a very limited understanding of what nonverbal autistic people actually experience in the real world. Especially because Music is, of course, portrayed by Maddie Ziegler, and we'll get to the fact that she is not autistic in a second, but even beyond that, she's a dancer, she's not exactly a skilled actress. And so her mannerisms paired with misinformed directing notes from Sia make Music come off like an offensive caricature. And as I just mentioned, Maddie is not autistic. And so when people learned that Maddie would be starring in this role, there was naturally a lot of pushback, because there has been a push in Hollywood over the last decade or so to have neurodiverse roles actually be played by neurodiverse actors. For many reasons, one of them being to avoid offensive stereotypes. So this was a good opportunity for someone like Sia to maybe sit back and listen to critiques from a marginalized community about how she could prevent this kind of harm being done in the future, especially because this was her first, feature-length film. But instead, Sia doubled down and got super defensive, and then we got one of the funniest days on Twitter of all time. Basically, it started with Sia seeing the backlash to her film and tweeting, "Grr, fuckity fuck, why don't you watch my film before you judge it? Fury," which invited replies of people telling her that instead of casting Maddie, she should have cast an autistic actor. Sia replied to one of these tweets and said, "I actually tried working with a beautiful young girl nonverbal on the spectrum, and she found it unpleasant and stressful. So that's why I cast Maddie." And this is a fucking lie. First of all, we've already established that Sia views Maddie as a muse of sorts and has said on record that she does not want to do any more creative work without her. So then why would Sia randomly not include Maddie in this project, especially because it's dance-based? There are elaborate dance sequences in it. Maddie is a dancer! In a similar thread related to the diversity in casting argument, Sia replied and said, "I cast 13 neuroatypical people, 3 trans folk, and not as fucking prostitutes or drug addicts, but as doctors, nurses, and singers. Fucking sad, nobody's even seen the dang movie. My heart has always been in the right place." Now, even if that's true, this tweet and Music have the same problem. Even if Sia's heart is in the right place, this is a woefully incorrect execution of the point that she's trying to make. Sia replied to like 40 different tweets critiquing her, but kind of the nail in the coffin on this one was somebody who tweeted, "Several autistic actors, myself included, responded to these tweets. We all said we could have acted in it on short notice. These excuses are just that, excuses. The fact of the matter is 0 effort was made to include anyone who was actually autistic." To which Sia replied, "Maybe you're just a bad actor." Girl, what the fuck? And the controversy surrounding this movie didn't just stop at the casting. There's a point in the film where Leslie Odom Jr.'s character advocates and teaches Kate Hudson's character how to restrain Music when she's having a meltdown. Restraining is a method that has been lethal to autistic people in the past, and people in the autistic community actively advocate against it. The inclusion of the scene got people wondering where Sia actually did her research for this film, because she claimed in interviews that it was a passion project of hers, so surely she was getting her information about the nonverbal autistic experience from reputable sources with helpful information on how to actively advocate for this community. Nope! This movie was apparently endorsed by Autism Speaks. If you are unaware, Autism Speaks is a very controversial organization that advocates for the elimination of autism altogether as if it is a disease. Most people in the disabled community consider this rhetoric to be misguided at best and literal eugenics at worst. And a 5-minute Google search could tell you that if you're passionate about making a film about autistic people and representing them wholly and fully and in a safe and responsible manner, this is the one fucking organization that should not be latched onto your film in any capacity. Sia defended herself on this matter by saying that Autism Speaks came on board long after the film was finished and that she had no idea it was such a polarizing group. But again, if this is the passion project that she has claimed it to be, then why would she not do research about that? Why would she not advocate for the folks involved in the making of this film? That makes no sense. All of this prompted Sia to shut down her Twitter for a little while, and the movie was of course panned by critics and general audiences alike. Because controversy aside, it's also not a very well-directed film. It's not very engaging from what I understand. And a lot of it is just filler in between these larger-than-life sort of music sequences that a lot of autistic people who actually watched the film said that they did not enjoy viewing because it was such a sensory overload experience. So, if you say that this film is made for autistic people with love and appreciation for them, and they can't watch it without getting overstimulated, You kind of fucked up, I think, Sia. So for those curious about Maddie and Sia's relationship now, the most recent example I found of Maddie talking about it was on a podcast last. Meanwhile, a lot of this criticism really got to Sia. A few years later, she explained in an interview that the whole experience made her suicidal and put her back in rehab. And on another podcast, she actually revealed that she was diagnosed to be autistic and is on the autism spectrum. However, I think most critics of the film, many of whom were autistic, agree that this does not exempt her from being willfully ignorant in regards to all the things previously mentioned about music. As of right now, she's got new music out. She released a new album called Reasonable Woman this May. Apparently it has some pretty interesting collaborations like with Shaka Khan and Paris Hilton and Kylie Minogue. But from what I've seen, there hasn't been a whole lot of buzz around it, which is interesting because in the era of Chandelier, I feel like Sia was absolutely everywhere. People were super into the visuals and the aesthetic, and for the most part, they weren't even interested with what Sia had to say on those songs, just what she had to show. In those earlier days, she really made a spectacle out of both herself and Maddie, and then kind of took that spectacle too far with music. Sia is an interesting case to me because she and a lot of her fans argue that no matter what, she always had her intentions in the right place. But at a certain point, what good are those intentions when all you do is harm to a specific community? And let's not forget that there are some people who really aren't over her treatment of Maddie when she was young and impressionable. A point that I go back and forth on personally because, as you heard in that clip, Maddie still seems to have a very irreverent and appreciative tone for Sia. And after hearing that, I feel like a lot of people are speaking for her, and I don't know if that's right either. Sia is for sure talented, but she strikes me as a person who really can't handle criticism, and I think that reputation has stuck with her even as she's moved on from the music controversy. And now that the spectacle of her whole visual aesthetic has died down, her art is ultimately just for her fans. I don't foresee any kind of crossover appeal happening in the near future. Well, scratch that, because she actually does have some crossover with the Survivor fandom, because apparently every year since like 2016, she has given out money to her favorite players. I think it's safe to say this woman might love reality TV a little too much. But at the same time, what else are you gonna do when you're locked in Beyonce's basement? Thank you so much, you guys, and thank you so much for 100,000 subscribers. YouTube sent me this silver play button today, and I'm so excited to put it somewhere in my apartment. A reminder that you can connect with me at all of the social media listed in this beautiful link tree, which is also in the description down below. Thank you so much again, and I will see you next time.